Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, and welcome to beautiful Redmond, Washington, where it's the first Thursday of the month. You know what that means? It is time for the .NET Mobile Community Stand-Up. Today I am joined by my bestest friend in the world, and really my only friend in the world, Dave Ortnall. Dave, how's it going?
You could say best friend in St. Louis, and it would be completely true, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. St. Louis is my second favorite place right after Seattle. Third favorite place right after Redmond, Seattle,
Wow,
St. Louis.
I'm just falling down the list rapidly.
Rapidly. Depending on how this goes, we'll see where you end up. So what's up? What is going on, Dave? We have a bunch of stuff to talk about today.
We have a lot to talk about. I'm glad people are joining in. I am looking at the YouTube chat. I probably should get the Twitch chat going here too. We do have a lot going on. Sorry for starting a little bit late. Probably mostly my fault. I was running kids around. Who does that, right?
Right.
But, when the car's in the shop, you're running kids around. So couldn't be avoided, but I'm glad that we're here now. So I know that we've got a lot of blog posts. We did not do, correct me if I'm wrong, I think I was maybe traveling. We did not do a stand-up last month. I think it was Ignite, right? We were all at Ignite.
Yep.
So we've actually got a couple months worth of things to talk about, and we're trying to pull the cream of the crop. I know when I went and looked at the pull requests, there were so many, much thanks to the Hacktoberfest. So a lot of amazing things happening there. And I mean, really nothing but good news to report. The Ignite sessions went really, really well. Now, Matt, you were not at Ignite, right?
I did not go to Ignite. Yeah. With 20,000 people there, I chose not to be there. Let some more customers in.
I feel like, thanks for giving preference to the customers. Although I think they would like to have seen you. I'm pretty sure there was more than 20,000. I know Golnaz and her team was there. They did an amazing job. And we had so many more developers this year. I don't know exactly what the numbers were, but significantly larger cohort of developers joined, where it's typically more IT pros and business leaders. So it was great from our standpoint, being part of developer division at Microsoft, Visual Studio, .NET, and all that. To have a lot more of our tribe, I guess, coming around to the booths and getting excited about all the great things that we're doing, much of which we're going to talk about today. So if you're ready to get into the blog posts, we could probably start there.
I am.
I'm interested to see what you have to share because I haven't reviewed the blog posts that are listed yet.
All right.
And then we'll do some PRs.
Yeah, let's get right into it. So let's start up with the first one that I wanted to talk about, and it is the Snippets Challenge wrap-up. So, Dave, have you heard about the Snippets Challenge?
I have, and I believe that I need to make a submission myself. One of the demos, if I can get this thing running while we're talking, I'm going to show it to you. But yeah, this is Gerald on our team and Steven Thavison from the Netherlands. That's kind of their brainchild.
Yeah. So what the Snippets does, it's like a website, and you can go out to it and view certain, snippets to make your UIs look great and beautiful. And so what they did a challenge, and they have people submit different snippets. And so let's just take a peek at some of them that we have here. Kim Philippots, who we know and love very well from the Xamarin University days and now of the Microsoft content team, did one of the Marvel comics, and take a look at this. How good looking is that? And
gorgeous.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And we have a couple more down here as well. We have another one with this one came from a Dribble design, and that, look at all those gradients. Yeah, and we love the gradients, right?
Gradients are back, whether you like it or not.
And another one here that does like a financial app as well. So we have a little pie chart in here, and just a ton of information being displayed in a really, really nice, easy to digest view. So go out and check out the Snippets Challenge results, and it'll help you build up your UI really nicely. So,
one thing, Matt, I would love to hear from viewers, from people out there in the community, in terms of snippets and things like this that are basically samples, right? It's like, how do I achieve such and such result? They're almost like recipes, but scenario-based. I'd love to hear from you. What would you like to see more of? I mean, I think that like the Marvel comic one is amazing, right? It's just gorgeous. Your mouth kind of falls open. You're like, wow. But on a day-to-day basis, that's perhaps not the kind of UI you're creating. So it gives you nice confidence that Xamarin can do these things. In particular, that Xamarin.Forms is at the point where it makes it easy to do these things. But the data-driven stuff with charts and bar graphs and forms that need validation, those are perhaps more the lane that most people are driving in. So drop in the chat what you would like to see, because I, in particular, am always looking for ideas on what I can build that speaks to you and helps you with your day-to-day job. Let me write some code for you, basically, I think is what I'm saying.
Yep, let David do some code for you, and then you have the aspirational ones, the beautiful ones that you can show off to your coworkers that you did at home. So, nice. So yeah, we're always looking for more examples that we can put out on GitHub for people to take a look at and contribute to the Snippets community-led project, which is really cool. So another blog post that we wanted to highlight here is Syncfusion. And so Syncfusion's blog is a little bit, it's newer, and we're really looking forward to it. Syncfusion being a component vendor, which does a lot of controls for Xamarin, and they have a holiday challenge, which they come out and you can use their essential UI kit, which is a bunch of controls for Xamarin, and they've given you a step-by-step on how to go through it. Once you complete it, you get swag. Who doesn't love the swag? Right?
I don't know. Are we getting swagged out though? Are people feeling a little tired of the swag giveaways?
I don't think
do something different.
I don't think developers ever get tired of swag.
No.
I mean,
always need to replenish the T-shirt.
That's right. And I mean, take a look at this calendar control. How cool is that?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I've actually had to build one of those. I don't know if you've ever had to build one of those, but in the earlier days of Xamarin, when that did not exist, I had to build a calendar control, and it's a beast. It's a hard thing to do.
Right. And why reinvent the wheel when you can have it done for you?
Oh, I would have paid anything for this. Pretty much anything.
Mm-hmm. So, and another post that we have from Syncfusion is super cool. 7 ways to boost your Xamarin development productivity. So, David, what's your number one, coming from Xamarin.Forms PM, what's your number one way to boost your Xamarin.Forms development productivity?
I would say that the number one way to boost productivity is by being around and working with other developers. Because while you may learn some things on your own, you could master all the keyboard shortcuts, there's always stuff that you'll learn just by watching somebody else code. Whether it's a pattern, or it's that keystroke that you didn't know you were missing, or it's how to do more things with the keyboard and less with the mouse. Anything like that. We have so many smart people in the community. Basically, just squeeze them like an orange and just get that glorious juice from them, because you'll learn something. I don't know where I'm coming up with these amazing analogies.
I don't know either, but I love it. We're gonna squeeze the community like an orange, and maybe like a lemon too, and make this beautiful orange lemon lime type concoction. Yeah,
it could work. Could work. I'm not a mixologist, but it could
right.
work.
It sounds good. It sounds good. But no, that's what I love about all the challenges that Syncfusion's running, that the Xamarin ran, the Snippets challenge, that you get to go out, check it out on GitHub, the cool stuff that the community's up to. And you're not reinventing the wheel yourself, or you're getting some inspiration to do something, and you're learning what other people are up to. And that's what we try to do here too, is with all the tutorials and samples we put out, just to give people some ideas and push them in the right direction. And it's fun. It's a lot of fun, and it gives people a push. And yeah. So going back to the blog post here, is that Syncfusion goes over some what you can do with XAML to improve it, some design patterns. We talk about some open source frameworks, such as FF image loading, one of my favorites. Let's see, Prism, Fresh MVVM, a bunch of MVVM Lite, and of course Cross, a bunch of MVVM frameworks, if you couldn't guess by the name. And Hot Reload, who doesn't love themselves some Hot Reload? And Hot Reload, David, did you know it just went to GA in Visual Studio 16.4?
It is. I saw that announced in the Visual Studio blog, and then I noticed some people on Twitter were like, "Wait a second! I thought this was already GA. I've been using it."
Right.
And that's the thing, is like we're shipping a lot of things now underneath a preview or an experimental flag in stable releases, but you need to kind of either flip it on, turn it on, whether it's in the Xamarin.Forms code setting a flag, or it's in the IDE where you go to Tools Options and go find the feature and turn it on, and you get the impression that maybe it's GA, because it is generally available, which is what GA stands for, right?
Right, I think
sometimes
so.
you got to ask what these acronyms stand for.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, hopefully you feel like it's stable before we actually call it stable. That
Right.
would be nice, right? So I think that's what we're hearing online and social media. But I've been using it for a long time. I'm using Hot Restart right now, trying to. I said build and deploy. Launch failed. I'll work on that.
Right.
Keep
well,
going.
we're not demoing it quite yet, so keep that debugging going.
Oh, I see what happened. Oh, it is working.
Awesome. Keep it working.
No, it's not.
We'll be there in a bit. All right, another blog post. DevOps. David, what do you think about DevOps? I love myself some DevOps.
I do love it. I need to learn it better if I were to actually be responsible for it. Thankfully, I'm not responsible.
Right. That's good. Pass that responsibility off. A community member named Damien did a series of blog posts on Azure DevOps. He started off with the first one about building and signing and deploying your Xamarin Android app using Azure DevOps plus App Center. And now he's gone in and configuring and reusing Azure DevOps build pipelines between projects. And it's always good to reuse or not, again, starting from scratch with things. And DevOps this is a pretty comprehensive article here. And DevOps is something that once you get going with it, you're going to be wondering, well, how did I live without it? Especially with the build and provisioning type things with both Android and really with iOS. And so here we're looking at some YAML, or yet another markup language, which you can actually check in with your code. That way other people
Is that
can
what
do
YAML
building.
stands for?
Yeah, yep. And yeah,
Brilliant.
super cool. And Damien really goes into it here and explains what everything means, and it's definitely well worth a read here. So, pretty awesome. Pretty cool stuff. You remember Windows Phone, David?
Vaguely. I have a few on the shelf back
Do
here.
you? In the, what do they call that with the old phones that we used to test off of all the time? There's like I forget what the word is, like the graveyard of broken dreams or something like that.
Oh.
Where all the
Yes,
old phones go.
that is the middle shelf back here, although there's a bunch of alive dreams in boxes too. But
So everybody loves Windows Phone who used it, right? But unfortunately it didn't stick around. But Marco here had an app which he wrote about tying fishing knots. And he had it originally written for Windows Phone, but he ported it over to Android and iOS using Xamarin. And so this is like a great retrospective post about what he learned going through it. And it's just always good if you're, well, both if you're starting out with Xamarin to go through and see how somebody, what lessons learned they went through, and you kind of get a start off of how they got started. Also, if you've been doing Xamarin development for a while, it's always good to go back and get the view of somebody to see Xamarin from a beginner's point of view. And I think that's really important for somebody who's been doing it for a while, just to kind of say, all right, this is how people are seeing it to begin with, and I don't know, it just helps you re-understand the fundamentals, I think. So.
no, absolutely, I agree.
All right, good. We're in agreement with that. So we have another post here extending the segmented tab control for Xamarin.Forms, and this comes from Randy, aka Zamboy. So one of the prolific community members in writing blogs, and we love Randy. And this post is actually super cool because it extends or actually updates a post that he wrote over a year ago on the segmented tab control, and it just updates it makes it modern. Because the Forms team, your team, David, that you help out with, and PM, has done a lot of work. I'm sure you're aware of the work that you've done.
Just a little. Yeah.
Yep. And so he goes through and updates it to make it modern. So another great read to go through and talk about everything that's happened and make the control great. And we see tons of code examples in there too. So.
Yeah, it's nice that you can take those controls, you can extend them. You're really prohibited from doing nothing in Xamarin. You can get to everything,
right?
Which is great. And we're working on making it so that you don't have to do that for the simple things or the common things. But for the more advanced scenarios, you can always do that, whether it's the cross-platform API itself or whether it's those controls that you need to get to the nitty-gritty of and customize.
We got two cool sayings now. We're going to squeeze the community like an orange, and Xamarin, you're prohibited from doing nothing. This community.
Technically, it's not we are going to squeeze the community. What I was saying is you find the developers around you and squeeze them.
Yes. The community. The community is going to squeeze. You
be the code vampire, right?
Right.
This is getting weird.
This is what they do when it's just me and you in charge. Never again.
Don't ask and cut us off at any time. So
that's right. Reach for the plug. All right. How often have you had fun with Apple IPAs, iOS IPAs, uploading them? Never?
Is this IPAs? Is this a new beverage?
Yeah, right? It should be when you're dealing with Apple provisioning and uploading things. And Apple got rid of the application loader. And
they did.
Yeah. So now you have to go through a bunch of, I guess, more trouble. So we have another great post by Michele. And so he walks you through what you have to do now to go through this stuff. And you can use one of two things: command line, which I've been told all the kids love, or the transporter app. So, yeah, cool. So what's your opinion on command line? Are you one of the kids? Cool kids?
You know what? When you know what you're doing, the command line just doesn't get in your way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with like NuGet package restores and things like that. If you know what you're doing, that is the optimal way to do it and to master it. But it does take some learning.
Right.
So the onboarding ramp for the CLI world is a little bit steeper than being able to click a few buttons inside the IDE. So I am a fan of it. Yeah. But I know it's a hard sell sometimes.
Right. We love us some GUI. Give us that graphic user interface. Yeah.
Exactly. Like especially for those tasks like this, for uploading an IPA that you don't do all the time. It's not a recurring task that you do every day. So the syntax for being able to do that from the CLI just kind of, it doesn't stick in memory.
Right.
So for that kind of a task, having a GUI, having a button that you just push,
which
preferably marked easy.
in big and red and flashing. And that's why these blog posts are great, though. So you go out, find it, bookmark it. It's all out there for you, so you don't have to remember it. So that's great. And you know what else would be good? What you can do is you can actually put this, like this XC run, into an Azure DevOps pipeline, because you can run just arbitrary code. So learn it, then reuse it without even have to thinking about it again.
You go with that DevOps stuff again.
Yeah, well, I just started getting into it. Now it's all I'm going to be talking about. So a couple months ago it was all about authentication. Now it's DevOps. So you can always tell about what I'm learning and getting into. So, all right. Next blog post. Yes. Good friend of the Xamarin community, Ryan Davis, has gone out and done a post on what's new in iOS 13. And there's a ton of it. In fact, he did a user group meeting over an hour you can go through and watch him present on what's new in iOS 13, and videos are a great way to see the demos, get the content, and digest it. And so he has this linked here, but that's not all. He also goes through and goes through everything and shows, what's going on, like this multi-window stuff for iPad OS, and really, this is pretty thorough. And so, yeah, sign in with Apple. There's some authentication for you. Love it. So yeah, this is awesome. Core NFC, yeah, what's that? Who knows? But read it, you'll know then. So yeah, this is really cool stuff. And not stopping there. Now this is the best. Code Magazine, big magazine, right? Everybody reads it. Everybody should read it. Ryan has an article in it about Xamarin. Xamarin Native to Xamarin.Forms, reaping the rewards without the risk. This really is a great article. I think everybody should be reading this, and get to have some Xamarin content within a big magazine like Code is it's great just to have the exposure like this. And Ryan does a super good job. If you can see this little scroll bar here, it's a nice long article too, but it's a good read. It's a fast read. And he just goes over what Xamarin Traditional is, or Xamarin Native, into Xamarin.Forms, and goes down on how you break everything down and how they all relate to each other. So super cool. An easy decision to use Xamarin? Absolutely an easy decision.
Yeah, I worked with him on this, and I actually have hard copies of the magazine here. So Ryan, when I see you next, hopefully at MVP Summit, I don't know, I have a copy for you. So yeah, the great thing about this is it's his story of working with a customer and how they have evolved a code base over time. And the interesting thing for me is I've known Ryan for a while now. I was part of the MVP program before, and we met there. And then, of course, I'm part of Microsoft now, and I get to work with him as a community member and contributor. And I remember when he was like, yeah, I'm never going to use Forms. He wasn't like crabby about it or anything like that, but he was just like, it doesn't meet a need for me. And without my prodding, he has started using more and more Forms in his projects. And I think that's pretty cool. And he's having good success with it and showing how you can have a best of all worlds approach. And that's really, that's the mentality I'm trying to promote and preach. Is it's not an either or decision. Really, most decisions are not either or. There is a both and scenario where you can have your cake and eat it too. And used responsibly, you can have your cake and eat it too.
Right, and ideally it's an orange flavored cake. So
it's absolutely, yeah, a little orange meringue or something like that. I'm using words I don't really know. I don't know what a meringue is.
No.
But
Well,
I eat well.
Well, even a couple of years ago, Forms was a hard sell, and now I think it's the default starting point, at least for me, is why not with Forms? So
I hear that quite a bit from developers. It's every new project to just start with Forms, even if it's a single platform that they're targeting, because the productivity is there, because the resources are there, and because the controls have gotten to the point where you can get much further than you used to. Back when I had my consulting company before joining Microsoft, the question I would always ask my contractors, the people that I work with regularly, hey, what's the story with Forms? Is it getting good? Can you build full apps with it now? Or is it still kind of in its infancy? And when they started telling me, hey, this is actually pretty good, we feel like we're going to buy into this now, that's when I started looking at it. So I saw, I believe it was Daniel Hendricks, recently tweeted that he's working on a new version of his book about Xamarin.Forms projects. And he said he's got a lot to revise, because even though it's only just about a year old or so, a lot has been added, changed, improved.
Right.
Not in terms of, hey, you move my cheese, I have to re-architect my projects or anything like that. But, there's just a lot of improvements, because we're talking to you in the community. We have this open dialogue with you, and you're telling us what you need. And we I spend so much of my time measuring the feedback and seeing where the biggest wins are, and then the team does a fantastic job of implementing those in the code. But not only that, and we're going to get to this in a little bit, the contributions, it's through the roof.
Right.
I've got a chart that shows year over year the growth of our open source projects, and it's going like this. That's the direction, and it's in the positive. It's not going that way. It's
Right.
going that way.
The arrow's pointing up. And it's almost cliche by now to say this is a new Microsoft or it's open source, but it is. And Xamarin.Forms is a great project to recognize about that, is that it's a project that's run correctly and that it's taken a ton of community contributions to it. It has the internal contributions to it, and the issues are responded to and taken seriously. So it's open source done right, and it's Microsoft doing open source, and not to toot our own horns, but it's fun to see an open source project run by a big entity done great. So.
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, we certainly are well aware of all the growing pains and the things that we would like to do more of, right? There's hungry. President not sure can't hear me? No.
Gotcha.
No.
I assume you were talking about squeezing something as an orange, David. But I can hear you now.
I'm back.
I can hear you now.
Golden Ass muted me because she didn't want to hear what I had to say.
So, talking about open source,
Yeah.
how do you get code into an open source project? PRs.
How do you get it? I'm watching the screen and it's on delay, so I don't know if you're actually going to show something or not.
Oh, here we
She
go.
does it.
That's right, it's up to me and down. So the first thing we want to talk about is the Fluent API, David.
Oh, okay. So we're going into my PRs. I can share my screen.
Oh, you can share your screen, perfect. All right.
I didn't catch the cue.
Yeah.
I didn't understand what was happening. All right, sorry. And I was also replying to chat messages about my hunger. Share pull requests. All right, so let's talk about what's been happening in the community, especially over the last 2 months. So you can see here I've got a query over the last 2 months, and I'm actually sorting on reactions. I need to figure out how I can sort on multiple reactions. Right now it's just allowing me to sort on one. So if anybody knows, if you have get query foo and you want to share the foo with me, I would appreciate that. But anyway, there are 105 open and 230 closed. And this is, of course, a mixture of community PRs and Xamarin.Forms team PRs. And we do spend the majority of the time talking about PRs in the Xamarin.Forms repository because it is far and away the most active project that we have. And it's the one that you are most using and most benefiting from. So no shade on the Xamarin iOS, Xamarin Android, Xamarin Mac, components, essentials, all those projects. We'd certainly love to surface and talk about and celebrate those contributions as well. But just to explain, I actually do work on more than just forms. It's just the most exciting thing. So I wanted to call attention first to this because, you can query this as well and just see all the wonderful things that have happened. The Hacktoberfest contributions were through the roof. I don't remember percentage-wise what the increase was from last year, but I know that we actually have a blog post that does a Hacktoberfest wrap-up that has all the numbers in it, and it's just outstanding. And the cool thing is the Forms, the Xamarin team, not just Forms, but the Xamarin team at large participated in this, even though Microsoft was a more of a passive participant this year. So hopefully we can show the big boys that this is well worth doing because it's great to see the contributions. So I have these in a slightly different order than you have, but let's go through these. So this one is from Bodan, and he is in Poland, if I remember correctly. Is that where that place is? And he is one of the group, believe it or not, that loves using CSS. in Xamarin.Forms. And so this, I imagine, is probably born from the interest of being able to do some wonderful things with that within XAML. And so this is basically color conversion. So I don't know if you know this, but we have added quite a few extension methods to make it easier and easier for you to style your UI, whether it's C#, XAML styles, or with CSS. And so this is a nice contribution from him, another one of these wonderful things. And just 2 cents for you, for all of you wonderful contributors out there. When you do post a contribution, it would be super helpful for everybody, not just me, but for everybody, if you would put code snippets in your description. Show us what it looks like in C#, and if it's a XAML thing, show us what it looks like in XAML. Show us both, because that is really helpful, not only here, but it's helpful when it goes to the docs. So wasn't planning on saying that, but value add. Stephen Thavison, who is a huge influencer. He's well known at this point in the community for his pancake view. For those of you who are short stack developers, pancake view is a key thing.
Gradients.
Did you see that tweet from me? The stack tweet?
No, I didn't.
Let's pull this up. This is important. This is important stuff. So, where am I? I'm here. So if you're not following me on Twitter, please follow me. That's Skinny Dave. Skinny Dave is from the past. He does not currently
I used
exist.
to love
Well, he
Skinny
exists. He's just inside of Chubby Dave. But where's my stack? Well, you know what? I could probably find it here. So this is I can't do this because I'm not signed in. It doesn't think that I'm me. All right. So the important thing is that I made a tweet about. Oh, there's Daniel's little promo for his book. Needs to add a bunch of new stuff. Just a year. Oh, here it is. Oh, best GIF right there too. But so here's my tweet. I confess I don't know what a full stack developer is. And it's part joking, but it's also part sincere, because it's like the term gets thrown around so much. At some point, you really don't know what it means, because clearly we can't all agree on this.
Right.
What is the stack we're talking about? And you know, is there a half? Is there whatever? You know, you get the joke. But look at the likes and the retweets on this thing. This thing went bananas. I definitely hit on something.
You are.
So I
You're the
don't know how to
influencer.
I don't know how to convert this into something meaningful and useful, but it was fun.
What's funny is right before Thanksgiving, I was down at VS Live in Orlando, and I was on a panel, and the question was, is there such a thing as a full stack developer? And I got the answer first, and my answer was no. No, there isn't. There can't be, because exactly what you said there. There's, what stack are we talking about? No, I mean, you might be able to know a little bit about everything, but I don't think you can be an expert in everything. So let's watch the chat window light up now.
I know, right? I know. Oh yeah, somebody's mentioning the debug rainbows. I imagine that's what they're mentioning. I see rainbows in the Twitch chat. So that's another one of Steven's libraries. He also has State Squid, popular one. So Steven finally made his first code contribution to the Xamarin.Forms repo. So he's done all this amazing work, and Gerald finally was able to twist his arm. I think he actually did a Twitch stream with Steven and walked him through the process, which is out there somewhere, probably on Gerald's Twitch account. So worth checking out if you're looking to make your first contribution. You can watch Steven and Gerald fumble their way through it. I don't know that they fumbled. It might have been super smooth, but I find that the best streams are the ones where you fumble, probably because that's what I do, and I assume that that's the way it should be done.
That's how you learn. That's how you learn.
That's how you learn, right? Yes. Yeah. You have to not be worried about making some mistakes, even if you are streaming to hundreds of people at once.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody has actually met a full stack .NET dev.
Wow.
I don't believe it, Wally. Don't believe it. It's not real. Pictures or it didn't happen?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how that goes?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cursor position and selection length properties for the editor from Joe Menke. And so this is a cool one. We have this, I believe, already for entry. But now once this is merged, assuming it would be merged, it would be a nice addition to get these properties with the editor control as well. So that's cool. That was one of the highlights that I found from the Hacktoberfest contributions. Adrian Knight, longtime contributor, does it all in his free time. Great guy. Is Adrian an MVP? If he's not, he needs to be an MVP. Implement item change animations enabled. And I pulled this one up because I don't actually know what it is, but it must be cool because I know he's working on a pretty cool app. So let's see, what is this doing? It's toggling the row animations during collection changes. Oh, in the items view. Right. So what this is the ability for you to have a way to hook into when things update and change within collection view. Items view is the base control both for collection view and for carousel view, which is upcoming in Xamarin.Forms 4.4, at least in terms of preview. And you may start using it and say, oh, this is GA. It's still preview.
It's there, just behind.
We want to resolve consistency between iOS and Android, but that's another topic. So it's going really, really well. Let's see here. Oh, some Mac OS love from Conrad Mueller. So this is adding an image button to Mac OS. So we've had image button for a while on Android, iOS, and UWP. And apparently Conrad either wanted or needed this on Mac OS. So you may be wondering what's happening with Mac OS, WPF, Tizen, what's the other one? GDK for Linux. Mm-hmm. And the answer is whatever you're doing for it is what's happening. So we focus on Android, iOS, and UWP to deliver the best experiences to the largest swath of cross-platform developers that are using the platform. And then when you want something for Mac OS, WPF, all those others, then please contribute. And if you need somebody to partner with, we've got some great developers that are actively contributing to these back ends. So you can search through the pull request and you'll frequently, if not always, see something happening on those back ends.
I've run into a couple developers actively doing Mac OS development with Forms, mm-hmm. which is pretty cool. Mm-hmm. I mean, you don't think that you're going to use Xamarin.Forms for Mac, but you can.
Yeah, and it's kind of another tangent. I'm full of tangents today. With Mac introducing, or with Apple introducing Catalyst, which is the ability to take your iOS, iPadOS apps to the Mac desktop. They have some of their own apps that are doing that. We are going to be spiking that work within the iOS SDK to see what that's going to look like for us. We feel like we have a pretty good idea of what that work is going to take. But once that road is laid, your path to taking all your iOS work directly to the Mac without needing to even use the Mac OS backend is very straightforward. But yeah, to your point, I know that we have customers actively in production using Mac OS as a backend. So, and from all indications, it seems to be going well. So that's great. It's one of the most wonderful things about being open source is seeing what people will do with it beyond what you are in the core supporting. So now we've got a couple of PRs that are stirring up a lot of conversation, and I think for the most part, very positive. But the ASP.NET world has this notion of a host builder, right? And so it's this fluent syntax with which you set up your application. James has he's done several demos that showcase this experience. How do I get rid of this stupid Teams bar? Sorry, no offense, Teams bar, but you were in my way. So James has this blog, and you can kind of get a flavor for what this looks like. You have a static startup class where you're going to kind of specify some methods, some helper methods and things like that, configure any services that you might have. It looks like there is a settings JSON where you can pre-populate some things. Not necessary, but it's something that you might want to do, I believe. And then this is the host builder right here. So what we're talking about is taking this concept that is pretty well embedded, I'm led to believe, in the web ASP.NET community, and is now this the reason this is interesting to us is because it's no longer tied to ASP.NET. It's now part of .NET. And so it's a pattern that we could be using. And if it's something that streamlines some things, makes these configuration hooks discoverable, because that's one of my concerns, is that we've always had the Xamarin.Forms.init. We also have now Xamarin.Forms set flags, and for setting those experimental flags and other preferences that you might use. Like, for example, if you don't want to use fast renderers because you're using a library that depends upon the legacy Android renderers, those old style renderers, then you might want to use legacy renderers. So we have a flag for that. But discovering those hooks, those configuration pieces, is difficult. Whereas if you know that everything hangs off the host builder, then you just go host builder dot and you get, hey, do I need to configure the host? Do I need to configure services? Do I need to configure my logging, my DI, whatever the situation may be? And it's a common pattern. So if this is something that is of interest to you and you have an opinion on it, please come make comments here. Let us know what you think. So I believe the initial implementation of this, an idea from Konstantin, that is right, it is Konstantin, isn't it? Yeah, I'm pretty sure it is a little bit askew from that host builder that is part of .NET. But we're now talking about, hey, does it make sense to actually just bring that straight over and build on top of that work? So this one did, if I remember correctly, does get a lot of reactions and comments, which I believe, yeah, that's quite a few right there. So, I absolutely want you, when things are of interest to you, to please give reactions, comment on these things. You are not bullying us into doing something, but it is absolutely a way for us to see when something really should get more attention and discussion. So there's that. Related to that, there's another one here. Let me jump over here. So you may have been familiar in the past or even presently with Vincent's C# for markup class. It's not a library, it's not a NuGet package, it's a class on his GitHub where you can essentially use a fluent-like syntax. All the property setters you use as you normally would in C#, but then there are these helper extension methods to make some of the other work that you need to do a little bit cleaner and easier. So for example, the .row extension method gives you the ability to tell it where you want that element to appear in your grid. If you're not using grids for layout, I highly recommend it. Once you learn that flow, it's very, very powerful for doing layout. Binding. If you've ever written your bindings in C#, you know that the syntax can be rather verbose. So there's an extension method that makes this much more straightforward. So some really nice helpers and extension methods here. As the conversation typically goes with coded UI, it's like, why would you ever want to do that? It's not as readable as XAML. Then you have the other camp that says, no, it's just as readable, and I don't like the XYZ about XAML. So there are, Xamarin.Forms is a large community of developers, and I think that there is room for both of these patterns. So if you have, again, thoughts, comments, please come up here and let us know. This one has a ton of reactions because Vincent's been out there lobbying to get more and more reactions for this, which is great. When you're passionate about something, rally the troops, let us know. I love to see that passion, and I think it takes nothing away from Xamarin.Forms and XAML and the other things to have this as part of the product. Now, whether or not this actually lands as part of core, or if it's a separate NuGet package that we bundle and ship, but it's official, right? And I think that's really perhaps the bigger question here is, do we make this official? How we deliver it, what NuGet package it's in, that sort of thing is really not a big deal. Let's see, what else do we have here? Felipe has contributed AutoFit font support for labels. So we have an enum applies here. So just another wonderful, not just, but another wonderful Hacktoberfest contribution. to be discussed and entertained. And I mean, how can you not like it? He put in an emoji on the end of the label. That gets attention, right? Like whatever it takes to get attention.
Yep.
Here's one from Pedro. I was going to say Pedro. I wanted to check. I always want to check and make sure I get some names right. So we have line break mode on labels, of course. So it could be useful to have that also on buttons. I'm not, 100% sure that this one will get through because, we have to look at how each platform handles that and what it would take to implement it. Of course, he's done, it looks like the work for iOS, Android, and UWP, which is great. So I assume that it is doable because the PR exists. We'd need some before and after screenshots though. Include those. So yeah, cool stuff coming from Pedro there. Visual states for the switch for telling when things are on and off. So Visual State Manager came a little bit later to the Xamarin.Forms library, and so not all controls have states declared for them. There are a set of common states that I think everything implements, but when you have specific states to something, it's not quite there yet. So that is actually one of the things that is being added to Carousel View is full implementation of state support, which will make it much easier to, let's say you want your center item to be larger than your side items and you want them to transition. That will be much easier to do in the future with states. So cool stuff there. And who was it that did this? Durgish. Thank you, Durgish. What is that Smurf's name? Nerdy Smurf?
I'm going to say, is that Nerdy Smurf?
Is it nerdy?
I don't know. I know Papa Smurf. That's about it.
Nerdy Smurf feels too on the nose. All right, we covered that one. Just got a few more to go through here. And like I said, I only picked the top, commented ones, the top reacted ones. But there are so many more wonderful contributions. Another one here from Constantine, setting the status bar color and status bar style for iOS and Android and UWP from the page. And I think this is really cool because you may not know this, but you can do this fairly easily from the main activity for Android. I don't think that we have an equivalent on the iOS side for this. But in the main activity, there is actually a method where you can set the status bar color right there. However, I personally feel, and it seems that Constantine agrees with me, so he's obviously my best friend in whatever country he's living in, the Ukraine. But I think that all of this stuff should be super easy to do right in the forms layer. I don't ever really want to leave my forms code if I don't have to. Like I chose a cross-platform library to have that optimized experience. So would love to see this get merged. Yeah, it is still open. But yeah, you can essentially very easily set your status bar color and style. What are the styles?
Is that dark and light?
Styles,
yeah.
Light, dark. Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I would love this too, because every time I go looking for this, I'm like, oh yeah, I can't do it here. I have to go back. So
yeah, that's a bummer right there, though, that you still have to go dig into that info list to add that. Yeah, we'd love to see if maybe there's a way for us to either get around doing this or get the tooling to do that for us somehow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Oh, look at that beautiful
Got some screenshots.
Gallery. Yeah, include those screenshots.
So
code snippets and screenshots, folks.
So Jacob over in chat, David said it's Brainy Smurf. I don't know if that's true or not, but it sounds right.
I'm thinking he's right. Jacob knows things. He's a smart dude. He knows things. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt.
All right, Brainy Smurf.
Adding a UWP. This is from Brian McComb. Yep, Brian McComber. Sorry. Adding a display prompt to UWP. So this is something that we have now for Android and iOS, and I guess it had not already been implemented for UWP. I actually didn't know that it wasn't already there. So thank you for adding that, filling that gap. Yeah, so basically it's, now I saw another request for adding placeholder text because I don't believe these implementations support placeholder text for the entry field. So that might be something that gets added soon.
Right.
But nice to see UWP continuing to get some love. We talked about this one already. That's a duplicate. Did I open it multiple times? Oh yeah. So should we have a placeholder for images? So of course you have placeholder for wherever you have an entry. And if you use FFimage, you know that you can easily add placeholder images there. So it's basically your default image while your actual image might be loading from, say, the web. And so yeah, this is a nice, I think, makes sense. It would be a nice addition. Let's see, is anybody objecting and complaining? Looks like Javier had a little feedback. I don't see anybody blocking it.
No.
Just looks like we need to get the code taken care of, and that'll be in. So that'll be great.
I like that one. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, I mean, when I use FFimage, I absolutely use that one. But I would it's always nice to not have to bring in third-party libraries if you don't have to. Cool. Well, that is what I have from a PR standpoint. So, were there any other questions in the chat that we wanted to go over?
We had one about, is Xamarin ever going to be a part of .NET Core? And I think that really means .NET 5 once we get there. So that's...
Why would it not be? Oh my gosh. So Xamarin is absolutely part of .NET 5. Absolutely, you can use .NET Core as well, and more of that support will be coming. You can do it where .NET Core is the .NET of choice for what you're running on, right? So .NET 5 in particular, it's going to ship, November of next year. That's the public roadmap.
Right.
And we're working with the team and with our own teams to make sure that the experiences that we expect to have will be there. So the experiences are things like full SDK project style, being able to be on the same .NET build, .NET new stack of things, which of course opens up a wonderful opportunity to have our experience within Visual Studio Code. That's not a promise, but that gets us much closer to that whole story. It means that all of the SDKs would potentially be shipped as NuGet packages. So not just embedded into the installer for Visual Studio, but also available in the same way that you can get WinUI now as a NuGet package.
Okay, great.
So absolutely, we're all on board. We're all fully invested, fully supported. We are committed. We are committed to .NET 5 and the future of .NET. We're a core part of it.
Sweet. Another question that we had here is that the 170 open PRs from Hacktoberfest. Are we going to have a push to merge them all in December here, or December, January?
So the next couple of sprints, if we look at the roadmap of what Xamarin has out there, can I share my screen again?
Yep.
Golnaz, can I share my screen again?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Let's go to the roadmap. Xamarin.Forms release notes and roadmap. Oh, sweet. So if you go look at our GitHub and or your GitHub. It's not just ours, it's yours too. So you can look at what's actually on the road ahead, and a few things here need to be tweaked. I don't believe this one got merged in time to make it into 4.4, so that one's going to get bumped. But this one is done, so I think I actually started marking that as completed, and somebody called me. Got distracted. But then you look at the work ahead. There aren't any major controls from us that are on the near horizon, which isn't to say that we don't have some things we would like to do. But what this does mean is that a lot of the work that is going to land in 4.5, 4.6, 4.7 is going to be community PR contributions. Some of those will be things that we'll hopefully be able to continue collaborating with to get the contributor to push them across the finish line. Some of them may be things that we take over due to expediency to get them across the finish line. So yeah, I'm very excited that basically the roadmap for us is spelled out pretty clearly in what's in here in terms of pull requests. The main things that we will be working on from the core team standpoint in addition to the priority of moving these PRs along, and of course issues in general, is going to be shell and visual. There are some key things for like a phase 2 that we need to bring to those based on the feedback we've had since we shipped them earlier this year. So both of those have been out since, well, I think visual shipped in, was it March? And then May is when we shipped shell. And so we've gotten good feedback there that they are extremely useful to a lot of people. And for other people, there are these things that we need to mature and to grow. So that makes sense. That's how products evolve and grow. So we do want to do those things. We are working on those things now. But really, by and large, it's stabilizing what we have and taking care of these PRs. So great question. Thank you for asking. Thank you for contributing. Hopefully one of those is yours. Who asked that question? That was Clifford.
Yes.
Clifford's like, I want my PR merged, man.
He has
Jacob's
another one at the
about
bottom.
Xamarin iOS Android as nougats. Yeah, I think that would be really cool. Hot reload for code.
And I'm guessing that means
when you say for
C#.
code, Clifford, do you mean VS Code or do you mean C#?
I'm guessing C#.
So
yep,
hot reload. We'll be getting C# reloading. They're working on it, and so I know that at a conference earlier this year, a non-Microsoft conference, there was the idea of a fall/winter preview of that functionality, but that is not what we are looking at right now. We're looking at early next year sometime. I don't have a date to give you on when we're going to start shipping that, but they're working on it. And I'm excited to start dog fooding it myself internally. As soon as it's available, you better believe we're going to be shouting about it, because that's just another 2x productivity booster for all of us.
That's going to be amazing. We got that when we get it, because hot reload for XAML is excellent. Get it for C#, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a clear win, and it's something that, we talked about it when we originally were planning our hot reload release schedule, right? And it was like, okay, do we do the work to do C# and XAML all together, or do we do the one that we know we've got now, which was the XAML hot reload, and do we ship that as soon as we can while we continue to work on C#? And the answer was not unanimous, but the decision was made to let's get XAML hot reload into people's hands as soon as we possibly can. We'll learn from that, because that's our culture. Our culture is let's learn and let's ship early and often, and then let's, hopefully the next thing we ship is based on those learnings. And so that's where we're at today, is that we have a XAML hot reload that's out there. The clear response has been, this is great, but we want more. And that's the but we want. The but we want is, give me more, give me more. I'm hungry. This is proven that we're on to something. Just keep feeding the beast. So that's the beast you want to be feeding, not the beast of, dealing with other stuff.
Right.
Usually when you say feed the beast, you're talking about the crap you don't want to do.
Right. So David.
XDS. What is that?
XDS.
Hussein, what is that? You throw acronyms at me. I don't know what that means.
Microsoft Learn certification. I don't think there is kind of a certification that they announced at Ignite. I'm going to have to find out about that. Tune into the next Xamarin Developer podcast, and I'll talk a little bit more about that, whether it's a full-on cert or what that's going to be. Yep, we all miss Xamarin University. That's unfortunately that one disappeared on us, but they're working on some pretty cool stuff over there, and hopefully in the next couple of months they'll be rolling that out. So,
well, even though you don't have Xamarin University, you do have Kim Philpott's live Twitch streaming every Friday in the U.S. Or is it Friday? No, it's Thursday night in the U.S., Friday in Australia. And I mean, that's basically, you'll learn so much. Just tune into that, or watch back the videos that are out there. You'll learn so much. I learn every time I tune in.
Yep, and we can't forget about the Xamarin content over on Microsoft Learn either. There's a ton of courses out there that we have out there, and still tons of learning to be done. All right.
Yeah, Hussein was asking about Xam Dev Summit. I don't know anything about XamDev Summit. I know that that there are discussions that Dan and team, maybe you're part of the team, Hussein, are working on figuring out when we can do another Xamarin Developer Summit. And I say we as in the community we, not the Microsoft we. So Microsoft participates in terms of celebrating and sending speakers and things like that. But it is a community-driven event, so I'm not the one to announce or speak about that. Yes, it is where we announce XAML Hot Reload. Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Xamarin Developer Summit 2020 is cooking. I love it.
XDS, got it. That's what.
I can't wait to hear more. I know that there's some rumblings of maybe something popping up across the ocean too. So from a different crowd too.
Oh,
so
wow.
I'm excited
Nice.
about that. There's so many great things really happening in the community, and I feel like our job is really just to tell people about it.
Yeah. Right.
I don't have to stir it up, which is great because I don't have enough energy.
We just bring the orange.
Picking my kid up.
We just bring the orange juice to people.
That's right. We just teach people to squeeze each other.
All right. So with that,
I wanted to show Matt the XAML Hot Reload, or not XAML Hot Reload, the Hot Restart. And believe it or not, the reason I can't do that is Apple developer account. For some reason, I'm getting an error about the Apple developer account provisioning. I can't sign into my account. So I don't know if Apple's in the midst of doing something right now or what's going on, but I'm gonna point the finger in that direction at this point. So we'll have to follow up at another time and do a cool demo.
Well, I think we ran through an hour anyway, so it's not, and we'll make that a point to talk about in January.
I'm pretty sure the joke after this is going to be, oh, you can easily cover an hour. Just let David have a microphone.
Yep. Put it in front of David. So cool. Well, David, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for hosting, man.
This was
I
a lot of
appreciate
fun.
it. And you got the cool room too. James is going to be so jealous.
Yeah, I know. James is still on holiday, and we got to hang out for an hour and just talk about the community. What more fun can you have? You can't.
Not much, man. As good as it gets.
You can. All right. Well, thanks a lot, David. Appreciate it. We'll see you. Well, we'll see you before next month, but this was a lot of fun.
All right, man. Thanks, Matt. Thank everybody for joining.
Yeah, thank you, guys. Bye-bye.